Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we aren't just looking at your standard biology or, dry natural history. We are looking at 6 completely unbelievable animal biographies. We're talking about stories so staggering, so deeply emotional, and honestly so tactically brilliant that they elevate these creatures from mere wildlife to absolute living legends.
Which brings us to a really core question. What exactly separates a wild animal, just, acting on pure instinct, from a living legend that captures the imagination of the entire world? Okay, let's dive into this, because the answer actually lies in animals that totally broke the mold, animals that defied the very rules of nature.
130. Just let the sheer scale of that number sink in for a second. That is the staggering, almost unbelievable number of rival male lions defeated by our very first legend. We are talking about a lifespan defined by relentless, victorious battle.
Act 1, The Wild Tacticians, Intelligence and Grit on the Open Savanna.
So that crazy number, it belonged to the absolute king of the Mara. Back in 2012, a 4-year-old lion got pulled into a brutal, violent territory battle. And he didn't just survive it. He took a vicious strike that literally tore open his right eyelid, leaving this massive, brutal mark. That's how he became known as Scarface. And for the next 9 years, alongside his 3 brothers, a coalition famously known as the Four Musketeers, he ruled over an incredibly massive 400-kilometer territory.
He basically became the undisputed rock star of the savannah, adored by millions of tourists, but out there in the grass, he was a ruthless executioner to his natural enemies. He took down an estimated 400 hyenas. And this brilliantly illustrates his absolute dominance. He successfully fought and killed an adult hippopotamus all by himself. A solo hippo kill is something most lions find totally impossible.
But honestly, it's the end of his story that truly makes him a legend. By June 2021, the king was 14 years old. He was starving, his ribs were showing, and younger, stronger males were closing in. But he didn't go down in some bloody battle. Instead, sensing the end, he walked 25 kilometers across the reserve. He actually pushed right past dangerous rival territories just to return to the exact spot where he was born. On June 11th at 1 p.m., surrounded only by silent conservationists, he closed his eyes forever. He died strictly on his own terms.
That same kind of tactical brilliance can be found in our next legend, a 400-pound bear born in 1996 over in Yellowstone. Now, most grizzlies hide deep in the backcountry, but Grizzly 399, she was a tactical genius. First, she purposely relocated near the busy, paved roads of Grand Teton National Park. Why? Because the highly aggressive male grizzlies, who often kill cubs, were terrified of human tourists. She literally used humans as a shield to protect her babies.
And her biological milestones? Absolutely staggering. While thousands of people watched over the years, she taught her cubs incredibly complex survival skills. We're talking navigating heavy traffic, hunting elk, even raiding honeybee hives. In 2020, at age 24, which is an age when bears usually really slow down, she completely shocked biologists by emerging with 4 tiny cubs. Tragically, on October 22, 2024, the Queen of the Tetons was struck by a vehicle in Snake River Canyon. At 28, she was the oldest monitored mother bear in the history of the entire ecosystem.
Act 2. The Untamable Rebels. Captivity, tension, and the refusal to break.
Let's talk about what happens when legendary intelligence meets human confinement. Take Elvis the Crocodile. Out in the wild, this guy was a total menace, aggressively attacking fishing boats in Darwin Harbor. But after getting a one-way ticket to the Australian Reptile Park, captivity did not tame him. If anything, he grew crankier. The crucial point here is that Elvis violently hates everything in his space: pool pumps, fences, and especially his keepers. Because in his world, you are either the audience or you are the prey.
And trust me, you do not want to be his prey. Elvis possesses a 3,000-pound bite force. To celebrate his 50th birthday, the park threw him a quarter of a cow. He attacked it with such terrifying violence that his death roll literally shook the entire park. Today, he is a 60-year-old, 1,100-pound living dinosaur.
But get this, his most famous act of rebellion was the 2011 heist. A maintenance crew was just in there mowing his enclosure. Elvis, all 16 feet of him, violently lunges out of the water, terrifies the crew, and drags their $3,000 industrial lawnmower straight to the bottom of his lagoon. And he didn't just sink it. He sat there and guarded it like pirate treasure for hours, practically daring anyone to come get it.
Now, while Elvis fought with just raw, terrifying power, our next rebel fought with his mind. Meet Pancho, the chimpanzee. After spending years in a circus, he was relocated to Ucumari Park down in Colombia. Pancho was incredibly smart. He profoundly understood how humans worked, how our locks worked, and most dangerously, he knew exactly how to wait. Actually, he had already escaped once before in 2007, making it all the way to the local airport.
But then came the final breakout in 2023. Pancho completely bypassed multiple security layers and vanished right into the Colombian jungle. It looked like a stunt from an action movie. He triggered a massive red alert. I mean, the government literally sent in the army and the police. At one point, he was spotted walking completely upright near a hotel, totally unfazed by the sirens blaring around him. But here's the tragedy. A 150-pound chimp has the strength of 5 grown men. Fearing a tranquilizer would just take way too long to work, authorities shot and killed him. It paralyzed the city and absolutely devastated the public.
The prisoner who dared to climb the wall. He didn't want to hurt anybody. He just wanted the freedom that his entire life in the circus and zoos had denied him. Today, he is remembered in Colombia not as some dangerous monster, but as a captive seeking liberty.
Act 3, Devotion and Tragedy. Profound connections that ended in absolute heartbreak.
We are going to start with an animal so incredibly famous, his actual name became the English word for oversized. Jumbo, the elephant. Born in Sudan in 1860, he grew into a global superstar. Back in 1882, the legendary P.T. Barnum paid this massive, unheard-of fortune, $10,000, just to make Jumbo the face of the greatest show on earth. But there was this incredibly dark secret behind the scenes. By day, Queen Victoria's children joyfully rode on his back. But by night, Jumbo suffered tremendously. He would go into these fits of must, smashing the walls of his enclosure in completely blind rages. So, to keep him quiet and gentle for the adoring public, his keepers fed him massive amounts of alcohol. They were literally sedating this incredible, majestic creature with buckets of whiskey.
All of that fame ended in an absolute catastrophe on September 15, 1885. Jumbo was just being led across a rail yard up in Ontario when an unscheduled freight train came screaming down the tracks. A 7-ton elephant had absolutely nowhere to run. The impact was horrific, but as he lay dying on the gravel, he reached out his trunk to his trainer. He was only 24 years old, which, is basically just childhood in elephant years. And Barnum, ever the ruthless businessman, he had him stuffed and just kept touring the carcass.
Okay, let's move to Adino and see how this builds from a tragically exploited giant to an animal who gave his heart away entirely by choice. In 1924 Tokyo, a golden-brown Akita named Hachiko formed this perfect loop of devotion. He'd walk Professor Uno to Shibuya Station every single morning, and then wait for him at 3 p.m. every afternoon. But on May 21, 1925, the professor suffered a fatal hemorrhage at work. He never came off that train. Now, Hachiko didn't understand death. He only understood the schedule. And for nearly 10 years, through freezing snow and blistering heat, he waited on that exact patch of pavement. Commuters brought him food. He became a literal national hero. Finally, on March 8, 1935, after 9 years, 9 months, and 15 days of waiting, he died. He had finally finished his shift.
A living monument to a broken heart. It's a story that literally still stops you in your tracks, isn't it? He wasn't just a dog. And if you ever visit Shibuya Station today, there's a beautiful bronze statue standing on the exact spot where he waited, honoring that completely unbroken loyalty.
The making of legends. What wild stories reveal about us.
So, I really want to leave you with a final provocative thought today. If an animal can exhibit tactical genius, fiery rebellion, and a solid decade of unbroken loyalty, what does that actually reflect about our own humanity? These incredible stories bridge the massive gap between their wild survival instincts and our own complex emotions. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep exploring these amazing stories, keep asking questions, and as always, stay curious.